Hi, I'm Zach, and today I've got some grip controllers that we're going to be looking at for the Nintendo Switch. First up is going to be the brand new Nitro Deck from Cracked. Now, this controller's had a lot of hype around it, and I'm curious how it's going to stack up to two similar controllers. Those controllers are a generic GripCon from Amazon and the RetroFlag grip controller. So, let's get these controllers open and get to comparing. And we've got the Cracked Nitro Deck. Let's take a look at the back of the box here. Built in for comfort, we got Hall Effect thumbsticks, ultra low latency, remappable back buttons, swappable thumbsticks, vibration and motion support. All right, let's remove this. Go ahead and pull this out of here. Very light, very, very light. Oh, and we got a little cardboard insert here. Take that off. And we've got a kind of a thick little manual here for a user guide. We'll set that to the side, and a little warning here. So this warning is going to tell you to make sure that you have your Nintendo Switch set up in the Pro Controller mode for wired input, or else it's not going to work. Let's go ahead and take that off. Oh boy, that is really on there. All right, well, that's pretty sticky. And as you can see, it leaves a little bit of a residue. And this is just plastic on the back. There's no felt here. We do have some clips in here that could be seen. That is plastic. It's not a metal clip in there. So overall, it's sturdy. It's not going to flex much. It's very light. That is a pretty loud button. Thumbsticks feel good. Now they did talk about these being replaceable, and yep, those pop off. And get more thumbsticks later from them, I guess. They got pretty good travel, and we've got our OLED switch. As you can see, I have a print here on the back. I'm not too thrilled about putting it on this hard plastic with no kind of cushion. But here we go. Ooh, had a nice click to it, that's for sure. We're gonna go to settings here, come down to our controls. Make sure that this Pro Controller wired communication is on. That is what that warning was about when we opened up the packaging. Let's go down to calibrate sticks. This is what I always want to see. Let's see how accurate. Wow. Yeah. Those are nice. I'm getting some very nice slight motions. Not grabbing to the X-axis or the Y-axis up here. All right, let's try the other thumbstick. Yeah, I like that motion there. It takes a little bit to get there. You get all that range. I have to say, it feels like it's pulling a little bit. Hard to get to some of those angles. Yeah, come out to the side here, and I'm just kind of doing a little circle. It's hard to get like a circle. It does have a couple little areas where it wants to jump out. So on the back here, we do have these programmable buttons. We also have a kickstand. It's pretty tight. Got a pretty good feel to it. We have an input for power and an output for using the Nitro Deck as a controller while the Switch is docked up on your TV. So let's take a look at the default programming on these back buttons. We're going to press right back upper and right back lower. Upper, and that's going to be ZR, and the lower is just regular R. So these back buttons are actually set in an opposite orientation as to your actual triggers. It's going to be ZR and R, whereas we have R and ZR. Let's try the left, and it's in the same orientation as the right. And we have a program button. That program button is going to allow us to program any of the face buttons to the back buttons. There's very little travel on these back buttons. Very easy to push. Don't really get in the way accidentally. My fingers really aren't resting. My fingers are kind of sitting back here on the back while holding, and so it's just over top of those buttons. So it doesn't really seem to get in the way of holding the controller comfortably. So we can adjust the brightness of this LED light by pressing the program button. Bright, middle, low, and off. It's great that we could turn off this light because this was pretty bright coming out of the box. The D-pad feels good. I feel like I have to extend my hand over a bit more than I would like to use it. There's not a lot of grip here, like to come down. It's a little cramped, so probably not the best for 2D platforming. If I hold it like this, it's not too bad, but that probably could have been a little bit more comfortable. You know, it tapers coming down, and it almost feels like it should have extended out at the back. So to get our Switch out of this grip controller case, we're going to flip it over, and there is a lock button on the back here. We're going to press that up, and then we can slide up our Switch and pull that out. You know, and every time I use this, I'm going to be checking the back of my Switch to see if I have any damage from it sliding in and out. I'm not seeing anything physically here. I don't know, again, repeated inserting across this plastic, is it going to cause some kind of friction and actually hurt the back of this Switch? So the big thing is, this was talked about being a big game changer. I see a lot of reviews talking about like, this is really something new onto the market. And quite frankly, that's just not the case. My go-to has been the Retro Flag grip control case. Now I've modded this one. Normally had a different thumbstick here that was more representative of the GameCube controller. I preferred more of a regular thumbstick, so I swapped that out. I found a donor controller and just moved that stick into this one. But it's Hall effect too. And most importantly, this one has a nice soft felt backing to it. It also kind of flares out down here on the handle. This is pretty easy to control, and when I grab down to use my D-pad, I still have a little bit more meat for my hand. Now, I don't have back buttons, but I still believe that this Retro Flag is just a little bit more comfortable in the hand than this Nitro Deck. And of course, I got curious and I looked up onto Amazon, and we even have this generic controller that's sold under many different sellers under different names. I believe this one's called the GripCon, and while thin, it does flex a lot. It also has a nice soft back to it. It has 2 programmable back buttons and Hall effect sticks. It also flares out down here to the end a little bit. This one has the most meat of any of these controllers. All right, we're gonna try the OLED Switch. Yep, fits in there. Oh, look at that. Look at those lights. Let's check these sticks. Again, this is the fail point of most of these joysticks. And I can move across the axis there without it grabbing. A lot of the other joysticks or Joy-Con replacements that I have that really want to grab on to the axis there. Take a look at this one. I'm actually surprised. All right, let's take a look at here at the buttons. Kind of mushy on the face buttons. Not a lot of travel there. So these are 3 examples of pretty much the same product. I really don't get why the Nitro Deck was being pitched as something new on the market. This one I've been using for over half a year. This one I found easily on Amazon that actually got here before the Nitro Deck did. The Nitro Deck is going to run $70. The Retro Flag is going to be $45. And this GripCon generic controller can be had for $30 to $50. Let's take a look at some of the differences between each of these controllers. We'll first start with the Retro Flag, which has been my go-to for over 8 months. You can see it has a little bit of flex to it. It does have these metal hooks in here. And to be fair to the Nitro Deck, the Retro Flag's metal connectors have worn away at the rails on the side of my OLED Switch. The regular Switch and OLED will fit into this. Hall effect sticks, the same. Smooth on the back, no back buttons, and it has no stand. This cheap $30 controller from Amazon. Hall effect sticks, 2 back buttons, programmable, no stand, but it will sit up on its own. And it'll do that with the Switch in it, though, yeah, not as nice as actually having a stand or other type of device there to keep that upright. With the Nitro Deck, we have a built-in stand, which is nice. 2 back buttons, just the plastic backing here, Hall effect sticks. I like that I'm going to be able to swap out these thumbsticks. That's nice. But again, not as comfortable using this D-pad, sitting a little lower. So there you go. There are 3 controllers that are available now. Again, I don't get what all the hype was on this Nitro Deck. They had a very good marketing team to really pitch that they were doing something new that wasn't already available. And that's just not the case. I think the surprise hit here has been the cheap controller from Amazon. I would probably even use this over my Retro Flag for daily use. It fits a little nicer in larger hands. The buttons are very responsive, and the joysticks work very well too. Now, I'll load up one of the first-person shooter games I like playing, Borderlands 2. And in this particular game, having a really defined aiming stick is very important. Yeah, you know, there's just not the range on this. man, that is a lot of travel on the stick to get moving. Now I can adjust that in the game, try to dial that in, but the other two controllers that I've tried, this is much better, much better. Let's take a look. Let's pop it out of here. Oh, look at that. Look how much more little movement I'm getting. Great game. All right, let's try the cheaper controller, the GripCon. Slide it in there. Look at that, lights up. We know we're in. It's ridiculous, but these sticks are a better responsiveness than either one of the other ones. I really enjoy this controller. What a surprise. If we take a look at the thickness, here's the Nitro deck, and there's going to be our retro flag. Now, it's kind of thick because it still has this. It still has to fit a switch in. So the thickness, I don't know how much that really plays in, but you know, it changes the look of the Switch. I like the look of it in the retro flag. And then here again is the cheap generic controller from Amazon. I have to say, yeah, the buttons feel really nice up here. The retro flag, a little bit more mushy. I have not disliked these buttons at all. I've found them to be very nice, but you know, in comparison, the Nitro deck buttons have a little bit better feel to them. This one, quite a bit of travel on these buttons, still very playable. So the D-pad feels very tight here on this GripCon controller. The Nitro deck, D-pad has a nice lift on it on the sides, and on the retro flag, it's nice and recessed too. I've really enjoyed this D-pad, and I find it easier to use because I have a little bit more handle or grip down here for my hand, not having to move off to get to that D-pad. When I'm working on the Nitro and I have to move down to that D-pad, you can see like that's kind of uncomfortable. So if I'm gonna play a lot of Dead Cells, this is probably how I'm gonna be sitting playing, and I don't really like grabbing just this little piece down here on this controller. This feels much more like a regular controller that you're used to. It's not really having to make concessions on where to place the D-pad. It's set in from the thumbstick. I'm pretty used to that. It feels good. Back buttons, again, 2 on this. We have other buttons for vibrations, the lower ones here, so we can change how much this vibrates, and our programming buttons, so that you can program any of the face buttons to the back buttons. Same can happen here. We have our program button on the back. We can program any of these buttons to any of these back buttons, and we can also program a combination of buttons to be triggered with a button back here. So we can create macros to run scripts of button presses. Let's take a look at programming these buttons. And on the back, we're going to find a program button. We're going to press and hold that and wait for our light to start flashing. We're going to hit A, B, Y, A, and press our back button to program that. You'll notice that it has stopped flashing. Now, let me try my back right upper button. And we can see it enters those very fast. So there they all are. If I had to choose one, I probably would go with the $30, surprisingly. If I had to pick one, if I wanted something that had the back buttons. I have to say, because I've been using this for 8 months, I've really had no complaints with it. I mean, the only thing I really wanted on this was some back buttons. I do like having those so I don't have to click the thumbsticks. I would say after looking at all 3, if I had to compare build quality between each one of them, you know, the flex of this is pretty bad. I mean, that's a lot of movement. But once the switch is in there, you're not really getting that movement. But I would say that the plastic quality and the finish, and because of how this handle and the grip comes off, it's more comfortable than the Nitro deck. I mean, this plastic doesn't feel cheap, but it doesn't really feel quality. And I mean, you're paying a premium for this one. Overall, I feel like this has a little bit better quality build to it than the Nitro deck. I mean, again, this felt back. I can't stress that enough. Really gives me pause about wanting to put my Switch in this one that doesn't have it. The retro flag, I find this one to be really comfortable in the hands. I have really been happy with this. The retro flag, I still think is the most comfortable. It just fits. It fits so smoothly. There are really no sharp edges on this controller. So one of the things I really like about the Nitro deck is the locking feature. And when you slide that in, I mean, you can hear it. That is in there. And that switch is not going to come out of there. So while it might protect the Switch from falling out, I really wonder how much it's protecting the Switch from going into the back here without that padding. Really, really a miss on the Nitro deck. So, at the end of this review, I believe that the Nitro deck was way overhyped. I think it's overpriced, and I think it underdelivers. And for that, it's going back in the box. Thanks for watching the review. I'd like to hear in the comments what you think of the controllers that you just saw, and whether you're thinking about getting the Nitro deck. If you like this review, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.